So my name is Bill Euler. I'm with PAS. I've been fortunate enough to work with a few of you in the room. Just to give you a quick thumbnail on my background, for over 20 years we've been deploying back office accounting solutions globally. We have over 1,000 properties in about 90 countries around the world. In addition, about 12 years ago we began application hosting. And we have a development staff. So we've been working kind of diligently in all kinds of arenas. We're talking about the hybrid cloud. I thought I'd start at an elementary level just to make sure that we're all on the same page. You guys know this, so really it's for me. But we all know that the hybrid cloud is growing at about a compounded rate of 26% a year. So it's actually in growth mode. I like the fact that KPMG just came out with a study that said 70% of chief technology officers actually now agree that there's operating efficiencies and cost savings in the cloud. I'm glad you all have caught up with the rest of us type of thing. We knew this. But I think from an application standpoint, we are seeing that the hoteliers are starting to take a cloud-first approach. This is my term, well, it's not mine, a lot of people have used it, but the idea is as they're looking at new applications, they're looking at the cloud first before they take it, down to the server level. So again, just to keep us all on the same page, we all are very aware of the benefits. I like to term most of these agility, scalability, and pay per usage. From a new perspective, a lot of people are turning to cloud providers from a mobile and a social. What I like to concentrate on a little more are the barriers. And I think we have, we've overcome the first one. I actually put security in black. I think it's unique because I think security is really the responsibility of the cloud provider. SSAE or SaaS, ISO methods, things like that. Authentication, encryption, to me, that's what the hotelier should be looking at me as the vendor to make sure that I can check everything off of your list. I don't feel the same way about integration. I kind of feel that integration and governance is more on your side. Doesn't mean that someone can't consume, but the idea of the movement of the data, the transformation of the data, and more importantly, if there's problem resolution, that really falls kind of on your side. And governance, same thing. The ability of oversight and management and administration, that to me falls a lot on the hoteliers. Now the idea is SaaS is what's growing right now. Boston Consulting Group came out and said it's growing 3 times that of traditional software. It's now supposed to be 12% of global IT spend. Now, I have to say, I love a SaaS model. But to me, many hoteliers, and really not this group in the room because you're the highest echelon of hoteliers, but many in the middle and low are turning to the vendors to get rid of these barriers. They're not really putting in what I would call a cloud strategy. They don't think about security or integration or governance. The idea is they think that if I just go to the vendor, I'm just going to lop it on them and I'm going to be able to check it off my list and I'm going to move on. When we start looking at the consensus from like the research groups, so Forrester says hybrid cloud is the norm, but they also say that this is a massive integration challenge and it's only going to get more complex. Gartner says that you all are going to start rethinking your strategies, but be ready because you're going to spend a lot more on application integration. Deloitte, rapid adoption, but we need a means of connecting. We need a platform. So I think from an industry perspective, I could keep going on and on. If I had more room, Microsoft says the biggest barrier is security, followed up by compatibility. Everybody just gets in line. But I think from the research perspective, it's the good news, bad news. Great benefits around the corner. We're not quite there yet. Security, I think, is actually getting there. I don't know what you're finding, but I think the vendors are getting over the security. They're able to check off the list and the ISO 144 items of compliance. I think we are getting there, and integration is going to be our next challenge. The main reason I'm here today is to introduce pasUNITY, which is our integration platform as a service. So it is in the cloud. From an integration platform as a service as defined by Gartner, it's really supposed to connect all of your systems, businesses, applications across your enterprise. It's all about connectivity and governance. If you ask me what makes my integration platform different than anybody else out there, there's three main reasons. The first one is, to the best of my knowledge, I am the only hospitality-focused integration platform. What does that mean? It means I understand your daily reporting, your reconciliation, suspense accounts. I understand how labor comes into a DOR but doesn't get posted to your general ledger. Our integration platform inherits that knowledge. The second thing is we built this based on a transaction-centric or an accounting model. And I obviously know that all the data that's moved around in enterprise is not accounting. But I must also tell you that accounting data is typically the toughest data to move. Balanced entries, validations, transformations, delivery formats, all of those things are very unique. So I wasn't smart enough to do the easy stuff first. I dug right into the toughest thing. The last thing, and this sounds a little unique, is I'm API independent. And I'm going to go into this a little bit, but when we came out of the gate, I even thought, oh, I'm just going to go right to the vendor. I'm going to get my 300-page documented API. I'm going to hand it to the programmer. They're going to spend 60 days, and all of a sudden I'm going to be connected. But what we found is the API wasn't always the single version of the truth. A lot of times the API is giving me a subset of the data I want. So now all of a sudden when the auditor walks in the room, I have to sit there and explain why my data doesn't exactly match that data over there. So when I say we're API independent, because of accounting, we had to figure out a lot of different methods to get data from what I'm going to term the audit report. Whatever I'm going to put on the shelf, whatever you're going to stick into the FedEx package, and you're going to give to your audit team, that's to me where I want to capture the data. I love pictures. I'm an accountant, so I love numbers and I love pictures. Very visual. What this is to depict is your hotels are over on the left, your corporation's in the middle, you're dealing with some third parties. Most of the people that I walk into have what I'm going to call a distributed application architecture. So they're running different applications on properties. They have some limited connectivity. And then up in the cloud, the vendors are all telling you, you got to come to the cloud. So to me, I consider myself a little independent. And the idea is that the cloud definitely benefits you. But it also benefits the vendor. Single instance, multi-tenant, a lot easier to maintain, a lot easier to support. So the idea is it really involves everyone. Okay, and as long as everybody realizes that this is a give and take situation. One of the things that we experience from a cloud environment, very well documented, is the fact that we're going to have version and patch set releases on a more frequent cycle. Most of my customers don't run patch sets every month, every quarter. They don't run version upgrades every year. So to me, as you start considering the hybrid cloud, these are just factors that you have to take into account. This is going to happen. It is a multi-tenant environment, and I always try to classify this as kind of a pet versus herd. You guys want to be the pet. When the dog gets sick, the dog goes to the vet, he gets medicine, he comes home, lays by the fire, he's taken care of. In the herd, when a cow gets sick, he gets cut out and left behind. So if I'm you as the hotelier, I definitely want to be the pet. If we look under the hood a little bit, and again, you all are the technologists, private versus public clouds, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, platform as a service. I saw a new term, which I'm actually going to use later, business as a service. I mean, there's 50,000 varieties of cloud. All the vendors run the cloud as they see fit. Sometimes it's no more than an RDP connection. Other times it's a web-based application. With respect to your side of it, I see all this wiring. This is years and years of production, peer-to-peer interfaces that have been written by no one that's employed by your organization anymore. They're kind of orphaned. A lot of you in this room have integration staff. You have middleware, and you're actually doing this from an on-premise perspective. And many of you are relying on your vendor. You're just looking at the vendor and saying, I need to connect, and you go ahead and provide it from a cloud-down perspective. When you start actually considering, and I guess what I'll do is I'm going to move to the next level. I want to now move down to the application level. And this is where I live, so it's comfortable for me, but I think it applies across the board. When I walk into the door, the corporate enterprise usually says, I want to take accounting and I want to move it above property. And accounting's a big one right now. Old systems, legacy systems that have been around for a while, a lot of times need to be moved. I wouldn't deem an accounting system mission critical. I would consider it important, but if it goes down, I don't have guests standing at the desk type of thing. I can still perform. A lot of people look at accounting from a centralization standpoint now. We're moving from that, not only a distributed application architecture, but we're moving into a centralized process world as well. And the cloud's facilitating that. So accounting is just kind of a good application. The first thought is that I'm going to take this up, and again, I don't mean to make this simplistic, but I'm going to take accounting up to the cloud. And right away, we realize, wow, it's not one cloud. I got 6, 10, 15 clouds because almost everyone that I work with takes a best-of-breed approach to applications. So I might have one general ledger, I have another reporting system, I have another purchasing system, and I have utility billing. So right away, as soon as I take that accounting function and I put it into the cloud, I have broken connections. And this is the first level of what I'm going to call integration heartburn. You didn't think you'd see stormy clouds today, did you? I wasn't the first, though. I saw stormy clouds. Cloud integration is just so much tougher than on-premise integration. On-premise integration is, let's go do a direct query from the database. Let's go run a stored procedure and capture our data. Let's muscle it into the tables. In the cloud, differing skill sets, I now got to use web services. It's just a whole new ball game. You do require the vendor. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to go into that in just a second. But when we talk about hybrid cloud, it just keeps getting tougher. Because the idea is that now I have clouds communicating to clouds. You're outside of your enterprise firewall. You vendors are communicating to the vendors direct, unless you're doing an on-prem kind of scenario. I had a group the other day. They had one SaaS vendor in Germany. They had another SaaS vendor in Britain. They were in the US, and they're using on-premise integration to go up to Germany, bring it down, take it up to the UK, bring it down. I mean, they had so much traffic going on, and they kept saying, this is terrible, the speed's terrible. It's like, well, you're moving 80,000 lines, like 29 times a day, and you're bringing it down to your infrastructure. From a vendor perspective, we see a lot of vendors using what I'm going to call a mailbox methodology. They turn around and basically they say, we have this great SOA architecture, and here's our open standard, And as long as you give us the file and that open standard, everything is great. But then again, the onus is then on you. It is a great service bus, but it's an inter-application service bus. It's not reaching down to you on premise or anything like that. So the idea is that you're experiencing a lot of heartburn. If you go up to the vendor and you say, okay, Mr. Vendor, I have 8 broken connections down here. I need you to fix it. And a lot of times, even if you go into your internal integration center of excellence, that's what Gartner calls it now, to your own integration team, and you go, hey, I got 8 broken connections. We went live last week. And the guy goes, well, on Thursday, we meet to understand all the integration, and then we'll put you in the prioritized list, and then we'll probably get to you in about 3 or 4 months. And that is what's starting to happen in industry. It keeps getting worse. You own this. If I use a specific example, I like to talk about purchasing because everybody thinks purchasing is one line. It's not. When I'm connecting to purchasing data, I have vendor master data I got to send into purchasing. I have items that I need to map into accounting. I have purchase orders that I need to send down. I have to change purchase orders to invoices. I then change invoices to check. I have to send data back up. When we talk to people at an enterprise level, they don't have one purchasing system. They have 2 purchasing systems, 3 purchasing systems. So the idea is this is really what you're inheriting. Gartner says that by 2017, 2/3 of all integration is going to be outside your enterprise firewall. And I agree with that. It's going that way today. The number one reason people leave the cloud right now is integration. Now, I would go out on a little further limb and say security's pretty much solved, integration's our issue today, tomorrow's going to be governance. How do I know that all that stuff worked? Obviously, from your standpoint, we're seeing a lot more hoteliers come to the table with what we call a cloud strategy. Security, integration, governance, everything's built in. So they're not relying on the vendor or the service provider to do this. They're walking with a plan that says, this is how we want to connect. And I think that's the most important thing. To me, the answer to tackling this is what I'm going to call an integration platform. I didn't make this up. A lot of those research firms agree with me. But the idea is you want a single platform that you can schedule, execute, notify, that's going to give you all these efficiencies, on-premise and cloud, legacy and web, the fact that it's going to give you the same benefits of any cloud application, that it's agile, that you pay as you go, scalability, fast start type things. If I take that same scenario, but I overlay a cloud-based infrastructure, and then I simply connect to all of my sources and destinations, this provides me the oversight and the governance that I feel is required across your ecosystem. It gives you a centralized engine that does all of your transformations, and it gives you the ability to move applications seamlessly. I can take a PMS off property, put it in the cloud. All I'm doing is connecting. New source, same destinations, if that makes sense. The key differentiator between pasUNITY and other iPaaS vendors that are in the market, and I'm sure you've heard of them, Dell, Boomi, MuleSoft, there's a whole slew of middleware providers. We're now seeing a lot of integration service groups coming into the market. But the idea is what makes us different is, one, I said, we're industry focused. We have over 500 connections to what we call hospitality, PMS, point of sale, labor, payroll, across the board already. We take what we call a canonical approach, which means that any data we take from a source, we strip it down to its most natural form and then rebuild it to deliver it to a destination. What that does, it means that every source on our platform can talk to every destination on the platform. So it's not a peer-to-peer type environment. We're considered failure aware, and this comes from our accounting or audit background, meaning that when we capture a file, we know every step that file takes from the time that we capture it through transformation, through formatting, through validation, and delivery to the end consumer. So the idea is we're tracking every step along the way, because the time in integration is not, did it get there or not? It's when it doesn't get there, who's responsible? Who picks up the phone? Where's the data? Is it a vendor issue? Is it our issue? Oh, it's just somebody added a new charge code. Let's just go in and update the mapping sheet. So by saying we're failure aware, because of accounting, I need to know debits and credits and validations. I'm able to identify thousands of issues that are going to arise, and then I can notify the one person that can resolve that issue in your organization. Don't have to bother you. Multi-threaded, high traffic, transaction-centric, we said. We also took what's called a service agent approach. We realized, specifically dealing with a lot of PMS vendors out there, that we couldn't get access to systems. There's no way I can call up a cloud provider. Well, there's a way, but they usually say no. When I say, I want to install my software in your environment, and you're like, you're the thousandth person that's called today, and sorry, pal, So what we did is we shrunk it down, made a little service agents, less than a meg. It just runs impellers, watcher impellers, web service impellers. It just basically takes the data. It doesn't require a lot of privilege. We're going to take the data as they give it to it within their infrastructure, and then we're going to send it to the center for processing. We also realized out of the gate that we needed a lot of different deployment options. It wasn't just about cloud. It was public versus private cloud. So we set up a deployment option for that. We also set up a private, what we call a license model, where you don't have to use my web infrastructure. If you like moving things on premise, that's fine. We got it. We also did what we call a distributed or a hybrid approach, whereby you can move your data from point to point in a secure manner within your firewall, but then you can notify me in the cloud of the event. Was it successful or was it a failure? So the idea is, in this distributed approach, I can give you a web application so that you can see all of the access across your enterprise. I might not be able to tell you the exact failure because you probably don't have the rights to know what the failure was. This is actually our web portal. It's our web infrastructure, if you will. The idea is it ties into what we call web matrices that identify every source to destination that you're going to run. You see our red light, green light type scenario. Everybody seems to understand that across all geographies and across all languages. I love red light, green light. In Canada, we put the matrix, no, sorry. From a mapping perspective, we have multi-tiered mapping. We've been working with a lot of you that require corporate level mapping, property level mapping, application level mapping, so we understand that it comes in tiers. Audit is where I think we shine every step that the file goes through. We actually capture the source audit reports so that you all can do desktop audits without leaving the office. If anybody changes a security setting somewhere, we can capture the event, load up the file so that you can see it. And then from a governance perspective, to give you that oversight. So the idea is, people like checklists. If I don't have the rights to see the actual file, I just want to see a checklist. Was it done? Was it not done? Did it fail? Who do I need to call to fix it? I really have I'm losing my words. I have four reasons that I'm here today. The first one was to introduce pasUNITY, and I hope I did that. The second one is to find out if you as an industry are looking for an integration broker. I'm not talking about pasUNITY anymore. I'm talking about me, Bill Euler, to see if you're looking for an individual to work with vendors on your behalf to talk about capturing data, population, things like that. We're already in discussion with a lot of vendors. I would much rather have you all in that discussion as well and driving those discussions. So I wanted to throw that out here today. The other thing is I've been involved with HTNG for many years, and we can never seem to get interest for accounting transaction messaging. I'm an accountant. I find it ludicrous that a company somewhere hires an AR clerk to type an invoice to mail it to you, for you to open the mail and retype the data into your, I just find this ludicrous. And I would love to leverage HTNG to solve some of this. GM solved it because they're big and they told everybody this is how you, if you want to get paid and you want to get paid fast, I think you as a group could come together and actually give that same leverage to this industry. And I would love to help in that, just as a professional. The fourth reason I'm here is really just an announcement. I take great pride in announcing that PAS, we've worked with Infor for a while, but we've teamed with Infor to create what we're calling PAS Cloud, which is much more to me than software as a service. It is an accounting system that is pre-configured, that is pre-integrated, that includes SOPs and best practices and desktop audit all in one. We just actually came to an agreement in November, and we're releasing in March. That's how quick it came together. But I'm very excited because I feel that we can put this in the overall infrastructure. The other thing, because of NDA, I can't talk about who, but we're also talking to a variety of vendors to come into this infrastructure. So multiple purchasing vendors down to utility billing. I like a thing that Cornell does where they do a hotel valuation. So we're talking to Cornell about how we can just send the data into their hotel valuation software. Would they accept a fee for that? Turn us the results so that you all can just get an independent hotel valuation on your properties. Those are the types of things that we're thinking of, but very excited about it. And with that, I'm done. We've left you a little gift on your table. We're trying to prove how simple life is. Thank you very much for your time.